Well, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for being here to help us support fellow community members known as Dreamers. My name is David Saez. I am the Executive Director at Centro Latino Americano. We're the largest social service agency in Lane County that specifically serves the Latino immigrant community. I guess we're here mainly for three reasons. First, we want everyone in the community to be aware of a critical U.S. Supreme Court case that will be heard on Tuesday, and we'll decide whether the current federal administration can end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Second, we want to make sure that the administration and all of Congress know we support the passage of a permanent legislative solution to the situation, and I'm talking about passing a DREAM Act. Dreamers are people who came here as youngsters and have only known this country as their home. They have attended or are attending our schools. They have contributed in many parts of our society. They're working in our offices, they're working in our factories, in many businesses. They're serving in our military. They attend our local university. And they are taxpayers and contributors into the social safety net that helps everyone, all of us. So they're invested, and we need to invest in them. In Oregon, Dreamers are contributing $68.2 million in federal taxes and about $39 million in state and local taxes. Finally, I want to make sure that anyone who's eligible to renew for DACA knows that they do so. They should do so with our support. We support them, and we're here because they're a part of our community. It's our responsibility as friends, co-workers, employers, family members of Dreamers to stand up and speak out for the people we love and we believe in. Today, we have several speakers who recognize the importance of this moment and who will share their thoughts as we enter this Tuesday. So I want to welcome and thank, in this order, this is the order that they'll be presenting, U.S. Senator Wyden, Ron Wyden, U.S. Congressman Peter Defazio, Oregon State Senator James Manning, Boley Commissioner Val Hoyle, and Eugene Mayor Lucy Vinis, Eugene Human Rights Commission and One Oregon Coalition Manager for Causa, Oregon, Joel Iboa, and finally, I want to welcome Cynthia Aguilar Arizmendi. She is a U of O student and a DACA recipient. So thanks for being here. Thank you all. And now I'll invite Senator Wyden to start us off.
David, thank you so much. And it's wonderful to be with you. Chairman Defazio is here. He and I have been partners on so many issues since our senior citizens days, so it's good to be with him. Mayor Vinis, Senator Manning is here. Joel, Cynthia, who I was standing with, and then we've got a terrific labor commissioner in Val Hoyle. I'm going to make this a filibuster-free zone, folks, because we got some very good speakers, but I want to make sure that we really cut right away to what is the crucial issue here. This is not some kind of academic concern for Dreamers and their families. This is about a real and frightening threat that they may be ripped away from their families and the only country they have ever known. And I want to begin this morning by making it clear that I am proud today and every day to stand up for Dreamers against that threat to what amounts to a fundamental fight for these young people we know as Dreamers. The fact is, these Dreamers have done everything right. I've met with so many of them around the state. They get good grades. They often work 2 jobs. They volunteer in the community, often for law enforcement. They play by the rules, and all they want to do is be able to contribute in Oregon and in our country. They are basically models for what we want young people to be. In 2 days, the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments affecting an estimated 700,000 of those dreamers. That means more than 10,000 young people here in Oregon. I was at the basketball game yesterday, and the place was packed at 11,000. So we are talking about thousands and thousands of young people that, as far as I'm concerned, when you talk to them about their daily lives in Oregon, they are models. Models, folks. Not only have they done nothing wrong, they are models in their conduct for what we hope young people will be. Now, the only other point I want to make, and then I'm going to turn it over to Congressman Defazio, and that is that even as this case moves in front of the Supreme Court, there is, in my view, no question that the Congress can and should act on this fight through legislation and move forward in the Congress. We all kind of, from time to time, see in the news that Democrats and Republicans don't see eye to eye on every single issue. When it comes to dreamers, however, there is, in fact, significant bipartisan support among Democrats and Republicans for bringing justice to the dreamers through legislation in the Congress. We got one challenge. The House has passed it, but we've got somebody who's been sending a lot of important pieces of legislation to what I call the legislative graveyard, and that's Mitch McConnell. And so today, in front of our friends and neighbors here at home, I want to renew the call that Mitch McConnell should finally do what's right and let Congress make good on the pathway to citizenship, which is just and fair for our dreamers. Finally, there's no other way to describe the White House's position on this in the past other than to say it's been cruel. They have seen no problem with punishing innocent young people and splitting apart families, even though it goes against the values of our country and brings yet more division to communities from sea to shining sea. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to my teammate in the fight for fundamental fairness, crucial fairness for dreamers. Please now welcome Chairman Peter Defazio.
Well, thanks, Ron. Ron mentioned the 70,000, 10,000 in Oregon dreamers who would be impacted should the Supreme Court overrule the Obama rule for delayed action for childhood. There's a lot more who would qualify, actually. The estimates are up to 250 or 300,000, up to 2.5 million or 3 million would qualify under the standards, but they were afraid to come forward under the Obama administration because they heard that this might, it wasn't a law. We passed the bill in, the House of Representatives in 2010. I voted for it. It was almost all the Democrats and a few Republicans, but the Republicans blocked it. We went then into the minority. We introduced it every year. They wouldn't even bring it up. In 2013, actually a comprehensive immigration reform bill passed the Senate. These are the old days in the Senate. And on a bipartisan basis, mostly all the Democrats and a good number of Republicans, enough to get the 2/3. And it included even better provisions for Dreamers than the straight-up Dreamer legislation, but it also provided a path to citizenship for others who were here, 10 to 12 million others living here in America, settled in our communities, a vital part of our economy. John Boehner refused to bring it up in the House because it would have passed. Unfortunately, that was a lost moment in time that gave the opening for the vicious activities we're seeing radiating from Stephen Miller in the White House, who is basically this 29 or 30-year-old right-wing punk is running Trump's immigration policy. And he is a very, very mean-spirited individual. So we passed it again in the House. It's in the Senate. If there was any compassion in the Senate, Mitch McConnell would bring it up. And gatherings like this might help. You know, things are shifting a little bit with the impeachment inquiry. Some of the Republicans are maybe starting to think that they shouldn't be total stonewalls on everything everywhere. And they're looking at some tough votes. So it's important to send both a message to the Senate on this legislation today and how vital it is, and to the Supreme Court. You know, the Supreme Court is political, and it's becoming, unfortunately, more political and more politically tilted in one direction. But they look around the country when they make decisions, and they don't want to get way too much out of step. And in this case, if you look at support for comprehensive immigration reform, I think it's in the upper 70s. And if you look at support for the Dreamers, it's in the mid to upper 80s. That means some of the Trump base are supporting relief for Dreamers, probably because they know young people in their communities. So this is something that can and should be done. It must get done. And it's great for you all to be here today to add your voice. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate our county commissioners, Heather Buck and Joe Burney, for being here, and so many others. I stand before you as someone that came from a family of immigrants and refugees who came to this country. And I have consistently worked to support comprehensive immigration reform. The bottom line is that, you know, when my family came here, they didn't have to go through the same kind of rules and regulations that we have now when immigrants come to this country. But they came here and they worked hard just like the immigrants now. When I worked on the last comprehensive immigration reform bill, which our federal delegation remembers that we passed, I was proud to do so. And the fact of the matter is, people will say that these immigration rules and what the administration doing isn't about race. It's about legal immigration. Well, that's not true, because I'm married to an immigrant. And because he looks like his British father and not his West Indian mother, he never gets asked about his documentation. Never. Because he's a big white guy. The bottom line is, every day as labor commissioner, I hear about people who get paid less and who get treated poorly and who are afraid to come forward because of the color of their skin. Literally 2 weeks ago, we had a memory care facility where they admitted that they pay their non-white workers $4 less than their white workers in Oregon. And those women were afraid to come forward, even though there were signs on the wall saying English only, and they were penalized for speaking Spanish to each other. That's happening here. The fact of the matter is, we're coming up to Veterans Day, and we have an administration that are deporting people who came here when they were young, have only known this country. They're deporting veterans that stood up and fought for our country on Veterans Day, saying that they love America. And the fact of the matter is, they don't. So we have one shot. And that one shot is through the Supreme Court, because we're lucky here. I feel very, very grateful when I talk to my friends and other labor commissioners around the country that we have Peter Defazio, Ron Wyden, and Jeff Merkley, who will stand up for DACA recipients, who will stand up for doing the right thing. But now we got a Hail Mary pass because we have a Senate that is in control of people who do not have empathy, who will say that this is not about race, but at the end of the day, we all know that it is, and we have to call it like it is. So, hoping that on Tuesday, the Supreme Court will do the right thing. As a Catholic, I can tell you there are Supreme Court justices that say that they make decisions based on their religion and their values as a Catholic, and let me tell you something. Jesus wasn't white, right? Jesus cared about immigrants, and I'm hoping that they do the right thing. And again, I am very, very grateful for the passionate support and unflinching support of our federal delegation, of Peter Defazio, of Ron Wyden, of Jeff Merkley, in support of DACA recipients, because these people that came to our country add nothing but value. So here's fingers crossed, and thank you all for being here. And with that, I'd like to introduce Senator James Manning.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator, thank you so much. Congressman, thank you so much. Commissioner, awesome job. Thank you. I'm a dreamer. I have a dream that all of this nonsense will someday come to an end. When we look at, in my job, 24 years active duty military, I'm a former U.S. Army drill sergeant. I train a lot of people. I train a lot of people to stand up and take the oath, to swear an oath to defend this country, the Constitution. And guess what? They spoke all types of languages. They spoke different types of languages. And they were all committed. And when their number was called, they went to the battlefield. A lot of them died. And those that came back severely injured. And then I found out that those same soldiers, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, sailors, were getting deported after they gave their blood, after they sacrificed everything. Someone said that we were in a constitutional crisis. I say that we are in a moral crisis. We're in a moral crisis because to treat people with disdain, to treat people oddly because they don't talk the way you talk, they don't look the way I look, they don't walk the way I walk, but yet they sacrifice as much, if not more. And then to have someone with evil intentions to say, you have to leave, and you've not done anything. Actually, you've earned your spot. You've earned your spot. So the dreamers out there, I want you to know I am a dreamer too. I stand with you. I will fight with you. Because in this time where we have this moral obligation, we don't have a choice. We have to band together. We have to band together. We have to stand up together. We have to make our voices heard. Because guess what? You could be next. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Senator Wyden. Thank you, Commissioner Hoyle. I am so proud to be the mayor of a city that stands firmly for protecting the rights of our immigrant community, for equity, for social justice, for safety, for being a welcoming community. We have done this in the city of Eugene through ordinance, and we have done it through resolution. We have passed an ordinance protecting the rights of individuals to assure that immigrants in our community know that we will not use our local resources to support in the service of immigration law. We are not working with ICE. Our goal is to ensure that people live safely in our community, that they can go to work, they can go to school. These issues, it's a national issue. It's right here. We are talking about our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, our fellow students. We are talking about people that we see and talk to and share lives with every single day. In 2017, the City of Eugene, the City Council, passed a resolution reaffirming those rights that the DACA students have a right to be here, and that we value their contribution to our community, that we are a better community because they are here and seeking to improve their lives. And we added to that, as a City Council, $10,000 in emergency funding to support their applications to renew their DACA. We have recently announced our affiliation as a kindness campaign, and kindness is about action. It is about how we step up forward for our community, for people who need our support. We stand up today. I thank you for your leadership. I am proud to be here, and I now turn it over to our community leader, Joel Iboa.
Definitely saving the best for last. How's everyone doing today? Good. You all look so sad. How's everyone doing today? Good. My name is Joel Iboa. I was born and raised right here in Eugene, Oregon. I'm the proud son of immigrants. I'm the coalition manager for Causa, Oregon, Oregon's immigrant rights organization. We strive to improve the lives of all Latino immigrants in the state of Oregon and their families. I also have the privilege and honor of being chair of the Eugene Human Rights Commission. And I'm here today with you to stand in solidarity with the national Home is Here coalition campaign. Because there's some fights you just can't win alone. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program has been around for quite some time. But DACA is currently under threat. And I'm here today with our elected officials and with Cynthia to stand up for DACistas, as I know you are here as well. Is that right? Is that right? Yes. DACA is legal and constitutional. It works. It's already improved the lives of thousands of folks that got here when they were children and their families. My own family, my own cousins have benefited from this program, and it's helped them improve their lives and the lives of their children. A few years ago, when we entered this new federal administration, I got a phone call from my cousin, who happens to be a DACA recipient, that her son came home crying because he was told at school that his parents were going to get deported, that he was going to get deported. It's easy to get stuck in this national paradigm of the awful atrocities that are happening, but I want you all to know, and I want to make it very clear, that the actions of our federal government and our federal administration have deep, resounding impacts here at home. Impacts that I myself, as an immigrant rights advocate and immigrant rights, and as a child of immigrants, feel. Our DACistas, both out in the community who may be working or may be students, feel every single day. But we're here to call on the Supreme Court to save DACA. In 2 days, they have the opportunity to do so. They have the opportunity to make good by the American dream, which is simply the opportunity to seek life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But if the Supreme Court lets the Trump administration end DACA, it will endanger the futures of my family, their children, as well as hundreds of thousands of families across the United States of America. And we can't let that happen. We just can't. History is happening right now as we speak, and future generations will look to us and ask, did you do the right thing? So I call on you today to do a few things. One, Urge the Supreme Court to keep the program. You can do so by going on social media, contacting your elected official to send a letter to the Supreme Court. The Oregon DACA Coalition, which Causa Oregon fiscally sponsors, currently has a campaign to help hundreds of Oregon DACA recipients pay for the renewals should the program be terminated. So I invite you all to write a check. It costs $495 to renew your DACA. In 2017, the Eugene Human Rights Commission approached City Council and asked for them to fund 20 DACistas, $10,000 to renew their DACA. If we all pitch in just a little, I'm sure we can get dozens and dozens and dozens and hopefully hundreds of more DACistas in Oregon to renew their DACA. Are you with me? Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Great. All right. So, hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Aguilar Arizmendi. And like many of you here today, I am a sister, a daughter, a niece, student, friend, neighbor. Now, I could sit up here and tell you about my story, maybe tell you that I came from some small town somewhere far away from here. Maybe throw in some figures to prove my point, sprinkle in a little anecdote about who knows what. But you've heard it all before. We've heard it all before. I'm not here today to educate you on why you're here, because you know why you're here. I have learned many things in my life about myself, about the world. And yet, one of the most valuable things that I learned came in the form of advice I received while preparing for my time here in front of you today. And that was, speak your truth. So here I am, speaking my truth. The truth is, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, the day after, or even when I leave this place here. But if you do, please tell me, because I bet on a game later today, and it'd be really great to know what happens. Truth is, I know we are living in a time when there's so much uncertainty, so much division. There comes times when we may feel hopeless, like there's no way that we're ever going to go back to that time. And you know what time I'm talking about, when things were good. But let me tell you something. It has always been like this. There has always been the other, the opposition. And to think otherwise is just simply arrogant. The truth is, this isn't new. The idea that hundreds and thousands of us are at risk of being removed from the places that we attended elementary school, played sports, went to high school, attended college, started our families and careers, from the place we call home. You see, this conversation isn't about red or blue. It's not about left or right. And to present it that way means that we are erasing the fact that there are actual people who will be affected by it. That there is an option, that there is a solution that works, as a matter of fact. So what's stopping us? If you are here today and support DACA, can you tell me that you have done everything in your power to ensure that your neighbors are okay? Your family and friends, have you checked in on them today? Have you called your legislators? We don't need your sympathies, your apologies. We need reassurance that the United States government is going to keep their promise to keep us safe from deportation. That we are able to continue contributing to our communities and making this country what the founders intended and envisioned. Truth is, I am uncertain. I am uneasy. I am afraid. Truth is, I am ready to stand for what I believe in, and I hope you are too. Thank you.
Thank you all for being present, making your concerns and interests known, and hope that the words here bring greater attention to the court hearing, to the support that's needed in our community. And that concludes our comments, but we are going to open it up to press questions or questions.
Thanks for the opportunity. This era that we're in was well documented on that Frontline episode, which documented Steve Bannon and the early Trump election since 2012 as being the strategy was racism, and it worked. And I'd urge everybody to look at it. It was just a recent documentary on exposing Steve Miller and Bannon and company. But also, this reminds me of the Democrats' alliance, the Southern Alliance, in which Democrats were complicit with racist policy in many ways in those states just to maintain enough majority to stay in power. Let us not be like that. This is so wrong, you know. We've been going through this with black people all my life, Latinos, the Native Americans, the Chinese, and it's a moral challenge, and we're still no better off than we were 20 or 30 years ago, as far as I can see. Sorry.
I can let me respond a little bit to that. I came into Congress with John Lewis, a famous civil rights leader, the March on Washington, the head of SNCC, and I've done the bus tour with him in the South, and it was eye-opening to me. I grew up in the Northeast, and I just, I knew about racism, but I didn't know it was enforced by law. Because when we get down there and they would show us schematics of bus stations, this would be the black sitting area, this is the white sitting area. We all knew about, how all the blacks were only supposed to sit in the back of the bus and the famous incident there, and I got to meet her too. But we've come a long way. They have not managed to implement some of their worst policies into law, but they are using extraordinary administrative powers, some of which are being contended in court, as with DACA. We have historically been able to rely on the courts, at least in this last century. I mean, the original racist, decision back in the 1800s. But I'm worried about that we don't have that bulwark. And this isn't a political event today, but I'll tell you there's one way we can fix that, which is if we get back the White House, the House, and the Senate, none of these racist ideologies will become embedded into law, and the worst excesses of this president in repealing, administrative rules, and it goes, they're focused on a lot more than being racist. Every day they're destroying the environment. They don't believe in climate change, and they're doing incredibly destructive things by administrative rule every day, day in, day out. And we're doing our best. I mean, we passed and then the whore at the border. We passed a very strong bill out of the House to say, pretty much eliminate detention of children, eliminate separation of families and children, a whole host of reforms. Unfortunately, Ron and others couldn't get the 2/3 they needed in the Senate. So we ended up with a much weaker bill, which in the end I just couldn't support, because I said, let's just stay here. It was the August break. Everyone wants to leave town. I said, no, it's important. Stay here, get this right, fight it out with Mitch McConnell. We didn't, to our shame, and but that didn't make things worse, but it did make them better. So we aren't letting them get through laws that are going to make things worse, but things are getting worse. I agree with you. So.
I want to respond to this real
Senator,
quickly.
we have to do the veterans rocket 20
We
minutes.
will.
Okay.
Sir, the heart of your very important point is that nobody is free until everybody is free. And one of the reasons your point is so critical is very often because we're here today to fight for the dreamers, because Tuesday is coming up. It's a specific date. We got a court proceeding that we're all going to be watching. But lots of times, the rights, the basic civil rights of our people are in effect waylaid through processes that are much less clear. And let me give you an example. I've been spending a lot of my time fighting for election security reforms. I will tell you that I believe a significant part of the problem in getting election security reform is a fair number of our opponents really see the status quo on elections as something that involves voter suppression, because reform might produce some people, like communities of color, that don't necessarily agree with them. So I think your point is well taken. Today, the fight is about DACA. We're going to start with the principle that nobody really ought to think they're free until everybody's free. And I would just ask, in addition to the very good comments made by the speakers, for us to keep our eyes open, because there are a lot of other efforts to really waylay fundamental civil rights that don't always come with a specific court date and proceedings you're going to see on TV. And I'll just tell you, part of the election security battle that Congressman Defazio and I are trying to win in Washington, D.C., in my view, involves people who really aren't willing to support reform because they see reform as empowering communities of color, people of modest incomes, and they really think the status quo suppresses the vote, and they're going to be, without making that argument, defending it. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when we think about, we have Democrats that are in the majority here in Oregon, but let's remember that we have had racist laws in Oregon that have kept people of color out. In fact, just 2 years ago, Representative Julie Fahey made it so that we can get new deeds, because the deed from my house says you can have 2 goats, 6 chickens, no roosters, and blacked out where you can still see it, no colored people. That was on my deed for my house that was built in 1960. Because of Representative Fahey, we can change those deeds, and we need to change a lot more.
Thanks, Commissioner Boyle. All right, that'll wrap up our press conference here, but speakers will probably be available to answer any questions people might have. Thank you.